Welcome to Being Extraordinary with Akasha Awaken. Here we awaken the Akash to the non-physical reality that stores ancient wisdom and magic for us all. This podcast is dedicated to the stories, the knowledge, and the people who have found a way to tap into this knowledge and bring it into our physical reality, fully allowing themselves to embrace our true and extraordinary nature, and hopefully inspiring you to do the same. All right, we are back, and today I have a really exciting guest and a really exciting story to share with everyone. My friend Michelle is here. So Michelle and I met, we actually used to work together before we became permanently, witchy people, I guess. So we used to work at this organization together, which is where the first time I met her was. But then we ended up realizing through a program or a workshop that we both liked tarot and spiritual stuff, and then we kind of started connecting that way, and then we actually became really good friends after we both left the organization. And you have done hypnotherapy, you're into tarot, we've done a course together, so there's lots of really exciting things that Michelle and I have done. And recently she's had this very powerful experience where she met death at its door and has all these new revelations, insights, downloads that I am very excited for her to share today, because when she shared them with me, I was like, wow, everybody needs to hear this. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you.
And you can start wherever you want about your death experience.
So I guess I'll give a little bit of background. A couple of months back, I was noticing that I had a lump in my stomach. So I went to go get it checked out, and it ended up being a cyst that was growing inside of me. And by the end of the first visit to right before my surgery, this thing had grown to roughly the size of a 6-month pregnancy, according to the doctor.
Oh my God.
It was huge.
Huge.
So it needed to come out. So we needed to get in and do surgery for it. And because I was healthy and nothing weird was coming up in any of my pre-testing and pre-screening, it was supposed to be a pretty easy in and out hysterectomy. They said, you're healthy, you're pretty young, it's going to be easy, you're going to get in there, it's a pretty standard procedure. Chances of anything out of the ordinary happening are really low. So you're going to be good. We're going to operate. You'll be in the hospital for 3-4 days, and then you'll be on your way home, and everything will be just working on healing and getting better. So it's okay, it's not really any getting out of it. You can't just let this thing keep growing until eventually it bursts. So we have to go do surgery. And I wasn't too worried about it. Everything sounded good. I was a little bit hesitant about saying okay to blood ahead of time. That's just something that for me personally, I was I like my own DNA.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of weird. When you think of it from a spiritual perspective, it is a little weird. Yeah,
so everything came back. My hemoglobin was really good. It was 140, so it was good. There shouldn't have been any reason for me to do anything like that. But my intuition kept saying I should be asking about pre-banking my blood or doing anything like that. I just all of a sudden became really obsessed with that before my surgery. Mm-hmm. So who knows? Was it intuition or was I manifesting things? I don't know. You'll find out, I guess, on the other side. But it was weird because I just became a little bit obsessive about it. But they're literally, your surgery is going to be happening anytime now. You would have had to be banking this months ago to get enough for surgery. So you can either choose to say yes, or you can just decide that you're going to pass. And I was well, you know what? Everything looks good. I'll just pass for my surgery. But I kind of beforehand was just getting a little bit of that feeling that something wasn't great. So I was okay, I'm going to try to have as much fun the week before my surgery as possible and make some good memories with everybody. And it was kind of my thing, go to a hotel with my family, went to go see a concert with Kayla, and just try to enjoy my time a little bit, just in case, right? We get in, I go in on surgery on the 6th, and it's pretty standard. Everything's good. I get out of the surgery and I was oh, well, maybe I must have been a little bit dramatic, because they said everything went well. They pulled this thing out. It's all good. Should be 4 days in the hospital. So the first couple days a lot of painkillers, in and out of things, in and out of consciousness here and there. But I was having some issues when I'd get up to move, because they want you to start walking as soon as you're comfortable to, just to make sure you don't get clots or anything, move around and stuff. And I'd get up and I'd go walking, and I kept getting like a pounding in my ears. And it was just like my heartbeat really loud in my ears, and starting to get winded a little bit. So I had to get sent down for like x-ray and another MRI and just tests and stuff. And they're like, well, from what we can see, you've either got fluid in your lung or it's like partially collapsed. So you're going to have to do like lung exercises, and everything seems good. Then the Wednesday night following, so 3 days later, I had just a moment where my heartbeat just started going like uncontrollable, and I was having a hard time breathing. And I called the nurse in to check my levels, and she's like, well, this isn't normal. So after kind of monitoring it for about 20 minutes, she's like, I'm going to call the surgeon, and they requested more tests being done. And they came in that following afternoon, once all the test results had come back to them, and they're like, so what we can see right now is that you're bleeding internally, so we have to take you in for a secondary surgery to flush everything out and make sure that there's nothing damaged inside of there. So at this point, they said your hemoglobin originally pre-surgery was 140. After the first surgery, it went down to 70. So I was like, if it goes down in another half, I'm probably, not going to make it if it goes another 50% off. So
oh my God.
We had to have the conversation again. And I said, okay, well, if it's a life or death situation, then give me blood, because I don't think it's time to say goodbye quite yet. And I know if I do say no to the blood, then I'm probably not going to make it. Like, the surgeon knew originally I didn't want to, so they were really careful about bringing it up even, because they didn't want to offend me they're just trying to be respectful to what I told them the first time, right? But you could tell that she was kind of like, I really wish you would, because this is pretty serious. Like, she tried to dance around it in the nicest way possible to not be offensive. And I was like, oh, I know. I figured that out before you came here. So that's what we had to do. But that is probably the start of where I was starting to get a few of my messages and my tests and those downloads coming in. It was like, okay, we're taking you for emergency surgery. We're just making sure that the OR is ready for you. Well, what do? You don't know what's happening right now. You're bleeding internally, and you know that it's probably not looking good. Your surgical team's trying to be, encouraging about it, but you can tell that it's not a great situation just from them, right? So I just had my husband with me. My mom and stuff had come to visit earlier in the day. She was actually on her way back home. And so what do? You make some phone calls, right? It's like, I don't know if 20 minutes when I get into that surgical OR, if things are going to be good, if they're going to be able to fix things or not. So called my sister and let her know, hey, like, I'm going in, this is what the situation is. And she was bawling her eyes out because she didn't know what was happening. She's 2 provinces away. And as I'm talking to her on the phone, she's just, I'm so sorry I never called. And, we didn't keep in touch the way we should have. And honestly, when you think that could be your last conversation with somebody, none of that shit matters. Even if it mattered right up to before then. It's like, if this is our last conversation we're going to have with each other, the only thing that matters is that I love you. I love you, and it's okay. And I know you love me, even if you didn't have the time to put out there ahead of time. Like, that does not matter.
That's so true.
And I had my husband call my mom, because I don't think she would have been able to handle it. And he's so calm. Like, he was really kind of the rock for everybody during that situation. But he had to call her and tell her, like, pull over at the side of the road. I have to tell you, like, this is what's happening. She had her boyfriend in the car, and so she got him back home, literally packed a bag to come back up to Saskatoon to be with us. But, like, he had to, like, pull over to the side of the road. We're gonna have this conversation. My daughter was still in town. She was in school. So I called the school and asked them, hey, can you send my daughter to the counselor's office? I'm going to make a phone call with her, and I don't want her to be alone when I tell her what's happening. And I didn't want to scare her. So I said, Mom's going in for an emergency surgery. I think everything's going to be okay. But Grandma's going to come pick you up and take you back to be with Dad while I'm in the surgery. And I just need you to know how much I love you. Like, literally, the only thing that matters at that moment is make sure the people in your life know that you care. If this is the last thing you can say to people, the only thing that matters is, I love you, and if things don't work out the way they need to work out on the other side of it, you just need to know that. And it was huge. Like, how much crap did I waste the last 2 years worrying about that? Really, like, if this is your last little bit of time, the only thing that matters is what you love. All the drama, all the nonsense, all of that other stuff, it does not matter.
It makes me think of, like, when people just say even like little things, oh, it's so cold today. Or, oh, did you see that thing on the news? And when you're like telling this story, you're immediately like, who the fuck cares about any of that shit? Like, at all.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's so easy to get caught up on it or even get nitpicky with people. Like, oh, so-and-so hasn't done the dishes. And you make it such an emotional thing inside of yourself. Like, do you think I gave a shit about the dishes when I was giving phone calls? Like, make sure you get those dishes done while I'm gone. Like, that does not matter at all. And it really put that into perspective for me right there. So that was my first real big eye-opener during this process, was really the only thing that matters is what you love. Nothing else really matters. Because when you're in that moment where you don't know if you're going to have more time, none of it. The only thing that matters is people understand that they meant something to you. And you need to get that across to them.
Wow.
And I think when I find myself getting into that headspace, that's going to be my go-to. Like, you don't know when your time's going to come. You don't know how much time you have with anybody. And the most important thing you can do is try to make the most of the time you do have. So don't waste it with petty stuff that doesn't mean anything.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. And there was this one moment, and I don't really remember why I felt it in that moment, but I remember like looking at, Graham, my spouse, and just being like, wow, like, you're really important to me. And what happens if this is our only lifetime together? Or what happens if this is our last year together? And you were like, wow, like, I want to make this person really aware of what they meant to me. And I remember like thinking that, and it was like such a profound wave. And like, you were talking about it earlier, but it's crazy how you can understand something as a concept, but then it doesn't like sink in till it sinks in, like deeper, right? Because I think, that story about it's the people that matter, it's not, we've heard that before, and it's like not until you realize that your time could be up at any moment until you're like, whoa, like,
yeah,
that is a real thing that I've overlooked and taken my health for granted, or my relationships for granted, or my life, like how the way that it is, the home, the things I've done, like you take so much for granted.
Yeah, well, and so much. And it's like, how many people would literally like swim across an ocean in a life raft to have the life you have today here? Like, we really can get ourselves stuck in our head about things that at the end of the day, they're meaningless. They're not going to matter 5 years from now. They're not going to matter 6 years from now. It's like, appreciate what you have. If you have a roof over your head and you have people that love you and you are able to fill your belly with a good meal, you have more than how many millions of people on the face of the planet. If you've got people you can trust, you've got more than a lot of clients I've worked with. Like, having these things, you're rich and you don't even see it sometimes. Like, you're absolutely rich. It's like I've seen people that don't have anybody in their life that they can count on, like just people that would use them and abuse them. It's like if you have someone in your life that you care about, you have so much more value in your world than you know.
Wow. That's so true. Like, or somebody that cares for you enough to like consistently show up. Like, I think if you're someone who struggles with self-love, which, let's be honest, is me, it's really easy to like dismiss, you know, oh yeah, these people are here and they're supporting you, but then you're like, like they could do that for anyone. Anybody, they could do this for anyone, you know, anyone could mean that much to them. But you were even saying in your experience, like, you realized how much you meant to the people in your life too, when you saw their reactions, right?
Yeah, well, that was another one of the big lessons I learned in this was, you know, you think when you get yourself into that headspace, because I feel like I've always liked who I am as a person, but I've had this kind of self-hatred, whereas I don't feel like I bring value to other people. I feel like I bring I bring value to myself and I enjoy myself, but then when it comes to being around other people, you don't realize you do bring value to other people.
100%. Same camp.
And I learned that from seeing like the time that I had in the hospital after in recovery. Like, as embarrassing as it is to say, for my first little bit there, like, I couldn't twist and bend and move around. Like, I needed help with everything, like a toddler. So I had a husband who I thought, you know, I could be gone tomorrow and I mean, they'd move on with their life, who was literally willing to help me wipe my ass in the hospital. Like, someone has to care about you enough to be there and be compassionate and kind and step up like that for you. And I spent a lot of that time in my negative headspace thinking, you know, they'd move on. They'd be fine. And he would go over to, he was lucky enough he had friends to stay with because it was out of town where I was at. And they'd go to play board games because he was trying, like, in the evenings to, you know, take his mind off of everything a little bit, have a little bit of fun when I was in the hospital there. And he's like, you know, it wasn't as easy as I thought, because, like, we'd go to play board games and they're board games that we'd play together in a group. And it's like, you know, if you weren't there to do your part of this game and bring your energy to it, we were like, oh, we can't play that game until Michelle comes out of the hospital. Oh, we can't do this until she comes out of the hospital. So all these little things that you think you're just being you and you think it doesn't matter, you don't realize the ripple effect that has on everyone in your life or the people you come in contact with. And that was another huge moment that came into me, was ripple effect. Like, everything you do has a ripple effect, and the people in your life have a ripple effect. And when you think you don't matter, you really don't understand how much of that ripple effect spreads so far beyond you. Like, I was just like, you know, if something happened to me, my daughter and my husband would probably be upset, but they'd move on eventually. So no, that ripple effect extended to, like, friends that I were like, oh, you know, like, now all of a sudden every time they look at a certain board game, they're like, oh, we can't play it without this person being here. Like, you don't even know the effect you have on the people in your life.
Totally.
That they just keep inside of themselves. Just, you know, special memories and things that they associate with you.
That's
like,
so true. I was just thinking. So Michelle and I, throughout like the past, how many years? I don't know, 3? The past 3 years, we would meet at this one particular coffee shop that's kind of in our neighborhood, and we go for coffee still to this day for like multiple hours, like the whole day basically. I don't have anything else planned on those days. And then now, like, I don't even, like, if someone's like, you want to go for coffee at this particular shop, and I'm like, it's not really gonna be the same if it's not with Michelle.
It's like, it's kind of our jam.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's so true. Like, you don't realize, you really don't realize, like, what you bring to other people's lives. And I mean, it is hard to reflect on that in your own space. But, like, yeah, like, I'm even, like, rattling through our memories, and I'm like, yeah, like, that's so true. I would have, if he wouldn't have come back, I would have been super bummed. I'm like, damn it, a friend.
Well, exactly. And you don't know, like, you have no idea how far that ripple extends. It's like, sometimes you think, you know, you're just you, and it doesn't really matter to anybody else, but you don't understand what's going on inside of the hearts and minds of everyone around you.
And it's a shame that we don't say things like that to the people that we care about on a regular basis. Like, hey, just so you know, these coffee dates are like a lifeline for me, and like you've really changed the game of coffee dates for me, you know?
And we're afraid of coming on like too strong with people like, I like you, and all of a sudden people backing away. But
for sure,
it's super important. I think if you have people that mean something to you, make sure you let them know. Maybe not obsessively every day, but make sure that they know periodically, like, hey, the time I spend with you is awesome, or I had a lot of fun today, or it was really great to catch up with you. Just little things like that, just so they know, like, they do matter. And even going on about the ripple effect, like when I was sitting in the hospital just looking at videos on my phone, Kayla already knows my guides like to talk to me through music and things like that periodically. I get messages and I know that it's coming from my spirit team on the other side, and there's this young kid, like part of the second surgery coming out of it was like, okay, like you have the second start, what are you going to do with it? So I'm watching these videos on Instagram and I'm just seeing like how much beauty there is out there that I haven't acknowledged, or the magic that I haven't seen, and you're kind of seeing it with a fresh set of eyes. Like, I've got a new start, a second chance. What am I going to do with this? And this one kid from, I believe, Jamaica, I want to say, or Trinidad, anyhow, he's singing this song, and it's just a video of this kid. I think the name of the young man is Rayshawn. And he's singing this song in a classroom, and he's just a little boy, and the lyrics of this song are, I don't want to act all high and mighty because tomorrow I might fall down on my face, and it's thanking the Lord for like the sunshine and the rain and the good and the bad in life. And just seeing that in the moment, I was like, you know, this kid was singing this in a classroom, just a kid living in the moment. And here's this lady in Canada in her 40s just survived a close encounter here with possibly not being here anymore. And like, I'm tearing up and I'm seeing the beauty in that. And this one kid in that moment had no idea that singing and sharing that joy in that moment was going to spread across the planet, online, to people on all corners of the globe, and just give them this message. Like, that's just another part of, you don't know how far your magic is going to spread in this world. Like, that's one moment a kid was just living in the moment, singing a song and being in joy. And how many hearts has that person touched with one moment? Like, you don't know what your moment's going to be and how far that ripple's going to spread. You could spread that ripple to one person, but then that person's going to take that energy and they're going to spread it to 100 other people. You have no idea how big of an impact you're going to have on this world. Even when you're in your lowest moments, like, you have to know that it's not going to be that way forever. You are here for a bigger purpose than yourself, and it's living, experiencing. You don't know when that moment is going to be, that you're just going to impact everything around you in such a way that no one else on the face of this planet could do it. Like, that's your impact, it's your energy, that's your light that you're going to spread out. Wow. Like, it's just crazy to me, like, just that idea of your own personal individual energy spreading that far. And you don't see it because it's you. You don't see your own magic sometimes.
God, that's so true. Like, even thinking this, you saying that reminds me. So, I was out with my spouse for lunch one day, and he just had like a handful of cash, like not a lot, but like a couple 20s. And I don't know what he was thinking, but he seen this guy, and he kind of wanders around. He's probably like homeless. And, you know, he was like, I'm just like, we're driving. He's like, hold on, I'm going to give this guy a 20. So we kind of like stop and wave this guy over. And he gave him a $20 bill. And I can see in the rearview mirror, like, this guy's face. And my partner can't really see the reaction because of the angle or whatever. So anyways, I can see his face in the rearview mirror, and he's like about to cry. Like, you can see like this random act of joy or kindness was like eliciting big feelings from him. And then all of a sudden you see him kind of just wipe the expression from his face. And then he like sprint walks to like a fast food chain or whatever that was just across the parking lot, and he ran in there and obviously got something to eat. And I was like, we don't know how far that like one act of kindness actually went. And it was like split second decision. I'm probably never going to see this person again. Have no idea what that legacy is. But like, who knows what he was going to do that day? Like, what if that was the day that he wanted to end his life? Or, you know, and...
Or what if he put out a prayer? Please help me get a meal tonight. And in one random act of following that intuition, that gut nudge to do something, you just helped work through the universe to answer someone's prayer and rebuild their faith. Like, you have no idea how big of an impact that is. Like, it's amazing to me. Like, I don't know. I think that you really, like I said, you can get so stuck up in the negative if that's all you're looking for. But if you choose to open your eyes and you choose to see the beauty out there, you'll realize that there's so much more magic out there than you could possibly imagine. Like, even little acts. Like, there's a kid online who's doing a 365 garbage picking challenge. He's going out into his own community with garbage bags just to show people it takes one person to clean up a place, and he'll show you the before and after. That's one person following that intuitive nudge to do what the universe is telling them to do. He's sharing it with people. How many people are going to be inspired by that and say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too? Like, it's incredible to me. And those acts of kindness, like, there's people out there who have whole YouTube channels doing it, and you say, oh, maybe they're doing it for likes. Doesn't matter to the person who's having that act of kindness given to them. And a lot of times in those moments, you'll hear people say, like, I was literally at my wit's end at this moment. It's like randomly the universe threw you two on the same path where you were going to interact with each other, and that's the help you were going to get in that moment. Like, everything synchronizes so well and so magically out there. And there's so many people out there that are putting out positive messages and trying to show you the beauty and the joy and the love and the compassion in the world. You just have to turn your gaze upon it and realize that we all have that power. Every single one of us has the power to make this world a better place. And it doesn't have to be something huge. Even spending a few minutes talking to that elderly person at the bus stop who's lonely and has no one else to talk to. Like, that is a huge impact in the world. That's a way you're spreading your light and your magic, and you see it as nothing, but it's huge for those people.
Oh, wow. It is what, and just thinking of like how synchronistic things are, you know, and we just think that we're here by this stroke of luck and nothing matters and everything's just a happy coincidence. But like, really, when you weave it like that, you were like, oh my gosh, like every step that I take is the exact step that I needed to take just today. And it makes you realize, like, if you just pivot your lens just a little bit, it's happening this whole time. It's just that you've been looking at this tunnel of negativity, which honestly I think is created for a reason, so that people don't tap into this goodness, and that we are stuck in these, you know, loops of anxiety or fear, because that's where we're always prone to be controlled, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And I was just reading something the other day, and it says, like, you know, your mind wants to trick you because it can't logic the next step. It can't predict the next step. But, like, no matter how you spin it, you're a spark of the divine. And that's what protects you and guides you, if you would just let it. But instead, we get stuck in these negative mind cycles, and it just removes us from that magic. So what do you think is, like, the culprit? Or if you had advice for how to get people to, like, move out of that kind of negative lens and look at things more positively, or be more appreciative for what they have?
I think understand the programming, because a lot of your negative beliefs are not coming from you. They're coming from outside forces. They're coming from this idea that's being pushed into people. And I think it comes from a lot of places. It could come from previous generations. It could come from, you know, the society you're living in. A lot of it comes from companies and corporations. If you feel like you're not perfect a certain way, you're going to pay for their products to make it better, and you buy all the products and still be miserable. Like, that's not where it comes from. So start to pay attention to your beliefs and ask, why do I believe this? Why do I think this? Where did this belief come from? does this belief actually suit my life? Is it fitting my life? Or is it an illusion? Is it something that I'm making bigger in my mind? Because I think a lot of that programming is programming. It's not you. It's not coming from an authentic place. Like,
mm-hmm. And I think people get really wrapped up in like destination happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, if I just had that magic number of money in my bank account, or if I just had that body, or just that relationship, then I would have the room to work on myself. Mm-hmm. And then I could get better. But like, I'm a culprit of that. Like, I used to think, because I really lived like cent to cent when I was working at, my corporate or, mainstream job. And I thought like, oh, all my problems hinge on this one thing. But then when I opened my business and I had more control over my money, and that wasn't the issue anymore, and I was still feeling blah. Mm-hmm. It's not this magic thing that you can chase forever and catch. And I think like Jim Carrey says it really well too. Like, he's like, I wish everyone could become rich and famous and realize that it's not the answer. And you still have to meet yourself every day and make decisions to find happiness and joy. And like, I feel that's so true.
Yep. And that's the big thing is you don't want money. Nobody wants money. Money is just paper. You want what money represents to you, which is the freedom to do what you want. But there's nothing stopping any of us from making baby steps towards what we want every day, or finding the enjoyment where we're at. Mm-hmm. Like, that's huge, is finding the enjoyment where you're at in the moment, looking at the blessings you have in your life. You like to travel, but you can't go to Mexico. Have you been to the town next over? Have you checked out what your city has to offer? Mm-hmm. Have you decided to invite a friend to something you've never done? Like, even try a new restaurant, try something new, shake and shift. Every step you take in life doesn't have to be a forward step. You can make some side pivots from one side to the other and then start taking some forward steps. Sometimes all you need to do is shake things up a little bit just to get the ball rolling in a new direction for yourself.
That is so true. Like, for me, I'm always like, I want to travel. I don't know why it's so hard for me to get where I want to go. I finally had money, and then we had all these lockdowns. And I was trying to ask myself, like, well, what is it about travel that you want so bad? Like, you want new experiences, you want to see things you've never seen before, and then most of all, you want to meet people and hear their stories that you wouldn't normally hear. And literally, that was one of the reasons I started this podcast. I was like, there's so many people with amazing stories that I've never asked about, like, in this community. So if you can't cultivate it, like, where you are now, why do you think it's going to happen somewhere else? Mm-hmm. And that's so true. Like, some of the most exciting experiences I've ever had are literally just in a neighboring town. Like, I've traveled at least a little bit in my life, and honestly, one of my favorite places I've ever been to this date is like the Rocky Mountains in Canada. I would still tell you, of everything I've seen, that's probably one of the more beautiful things.
Yeah, and that wasn't a huge trip from where we're at. Like,
that's an 8-hour drive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I learned years ago. Like, I wanted to go to Disney so bad. It was my bucket list. It was on my vision board, everything else. I got there. It was fun. But I remember having a moment in the park, like, you really put this on a pedestal. I mean, it's nice to be here, but it's not this like world-shattering happiness that you thought this destination was going to be.
Mm-hmm. I know. And when you were saying like appreciate the little things, like when you first told me about this story, you were like, you're talking about your daughter when you wanted to go for walks, and you'd be like, I'm just trying to burn some energy out of this kid. And instead she's like, ooh, a bug, oh, a blade of grass, oh, what's this? Like, all this wonder, like, right there, because it's the first time they've seen it, or they're just really present and seeing the beauty in every moment that they have. And then, like, the next day after we had this conversation, I had went on one of my, like, walks through the forest, and it had just occurred to me. I was like, this forest is 5 minutes away from where I live. 5-minute drive. There is never anybody out here but me and my dog, so there's, like, no rules apply, And the trees there are just, like, the exact type of tree and forest vibe that I like. And I'm like, it's just right here. And it's not that I necessarily took it for granted, but like I definitely walk out there and I'm in my head and I'm like, oh, I should be at work right now and I have this to do. And just in that moment, I like looked around and I was kind of like, if this was my last day on earth, I would be like devastated to think that that's the last time I was going to see those trees or see that place or see my dog. And I just stood out there and I like ugly cried. And I was like, oh my God, like I've been grateful for this place, but really kind of like pencil pushing the gratitude for it. Like, yeah, you're like, I'm happy I'm here. This is so great. And then really in that moment, I was like, no, like this is incredible. People live in cities and they never see the trees and they don't have this opportunity to just like go out walking by themselves in the middle of the day with their dog. Like, and I just sat there and I was like, wow, like that in of itself is like enough of a reason to keep wanting tomorrow to come. Mm-hmm. And even I was like, I haven't seen enough trees on this planet, because when you're done, we don't really know what the afterlife looks like. But I think the reason that we incarnate is to feel, to live, to touch things, to see the trees, to feel their essence, to explore, to do all these things. And I was like, yeah, I have not done enough of that yet. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I can be like ungrateful for even being alive. Like that, I've come a long way with that. But that was my original like issue. Like before I woke up, even as like a teenager and into my early adulthood, I was like, why the fuck am I even alive? Like this is annoying. It's hard. It's not easy. I'm not having fun. You know, all these different X, Y, whatever. And I'd literally say things like, I didn't ask to be here. And then jokes on me, because later I find out I did ask to be here. But it's like, yeah, I haven't done enough living yet.
Yeah, like that's huge, is just understanding that there's so much out there that you got to open your eyes and you got to open your heart, and you have to be willing to see the trees in the forest instead of, you know, mm-hmm. just barreling through. Like anything can be something of wonder. Like start to look at things like you are from another country and you're seeing it for the first time. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, or even like this could be the last time you're seeing it. Exactly. Like that's what I thought about. I was like, this could be the last time I ever see the trees. Like what if, even if your health deteriorated, like what happens if you couldn't walk anymore? And it was the last time you could take your own 2 feet and walk through that forest. Like, oh, doesn't it change the meaning of that bush? Like you're like, wow, that is not okay. I am not okay with that. And then it just inherently whiplashes you into gratitude and presence, because you're like, if this is the last time, well, shit, I'm going to suck up every moment of this. And like, why can't you just move through that all the time?
Yep, and that's a good mantra to have if this was my last moment. Like I looked back at last year, and one of my favorite memories of the year was literally going to Manitou Beach. And in my head, it was going to be amazing because it's supposed to be this super healing water. The reality of the situation was that water was just full of dead worms. But you know what? You literally can make your own enjoyment and make your own fun. I was in there swimming in the dead worm water, having the time of my life. I was like, this is a magical, sacred place and I am going to enjoy it. And it was the first time in a long time I really just let my inner kid out. Mm-hmm. Like my daughter and I splashed in the water. We were laughing our heads off. My husband was on the beach. He's like, the whole beach can hear you. I was like, good, we're having a good time. Like it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Like we're just going to have as much fun as possible. And yeah, coming out of that, and I was pulling dead worms out of my bra, like out of my swimsuit and everything else. I still had like one of the best days ever. But our drive home, there was a thunderstorm. Like it was probably a day that I could have been like, oh, the weather was gross, the water. Like, no, mm-hmm. I decided that day it was going to be a great day. I was with people I cared about. I was doing something new. And that's only a couple hours away. And mm-hmm. I had the best time. And even at the end of the thunderstorm, we ended up having like a full sky rainbow. Like you can find the beauty and the joy in anything if you choose to see it. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. You always have a choice. Even this situation, being in the hospital, sucked. It was not where I would have chosen to be. I was in there for 2 weeks. I couldn't eat. I had feed bags and tubes coming out of me. I looked like a marionette. I had 4 different things on my pole. I was attached to so many things. It was like a 5-minute process to get up out of the bed just to go walk to the bathroom to use it. And I mean, I'm choosing to still see it as one of the best things that happened to me, because I got a really good perspective shift in those moments. Mm-hmm. Like it was not great in the moment. I don't ever want to do it again if I can help it. But I got to see things with a whole new set of eyes. There's a whole world of people out there that make the decision that their career is going to be something to help people. Like all those nurses, thank you so much. You guys treated me with dignity and respect, and you made sure that a miserable situation was as pleasant as it could be. Like, you're uncomfortable. It's not fun to be in pain, and it's not fun to be strapped to that stuff. And you're pushing the button when you need help. And never once did anyone make me feel like I was an inconvenience for being there. Like, this is not an easy job. People can go on Wall Street or go into business or management and make just as much money, if not more. These people made a choice in their life that what they were going to do for a career was going to be help people. That's beauty and that's magic in the world right there. That's something wonderful to see right there. Like, you have that situation happening too. And for even looking at two people, because I had to get two separate donations, thanks to two people randomly deciding they were going to go to a blood drive and donate blood. I'm still alive and I'm here, so thank you to them as well. Like, those two people made a choice, and they had no idea that it was going to save my life. I had no idea there was two people out there that I would be on the face of the planet alive today because they donated blood. Like, there's so much good out there. You guys really, like, if you're in a space right now where you're not seeing it, start to change your perspective a little bit. I'm not saying the bad stuff's not out there, but every bad thing that happens to you in this world is giving you a chance to learn and to grow. And everything that happens to you, good or bad, is shaping who you are as a human being on this planet. And that's what life is about. Learning and growing. And you make the decision in the moment, no matter what's happening to you, whether or not you're going to grow in a direction that leads you to the light, or if you're going to let this keep you down in the mud. And it's not always easy. It's not. Life can throw a lot of crap at you. It can be painful, it can be messy, it can be hard, it can feel like it goes on forever. But there's so much beauty out there. You just have to change the focus.
And even like when you say that, you know, you didn't let the rumor that being in the hospital is a miserable experience, because that's such a rumor. Like, oh, you know, everyone's grumpy, everyone's overworked, it's not going to be a good time. You didn't let that, you know, you found out for yourself what the experience really was, and you made your own decisions. And I swear, like, comparison or even expectations, like, those preconceived ideas is like such a huge culprit. Like, again, if you were just like that child and you're like, all right, I'm here in this moment, there are certain things I don't like, but there's also like these great staff, and I can't believe they even have blood on hand, because, like, you know, if this was however many years ago, that wouldn't even be a part of our healthcare, right?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Well, and even visiting time, like seeing people like in the hospital, and like my roommate across the way was an older lady, and twice a day she'd have her kids come and visit her. And it's like all these people with all these people that love them. Like, I don't know, I was just getting tons of high vibe downloads when I was in there. Like, this is magic. Like, you've got people in the world that are coming in and concerned about you. They're coming to see you every day. They love you. They miss you. Like, anytime people come in, I mean, obviously, if I was trying to nap, I was maybe a little bit less like, but at the same time, I was like, that's wonderful. It's wonderful that this person has these people in their life that they love, because I know for having the people I love around me has been amazing, and has helped me give me a sense of fighting for my own survival right now. Because I know after the first surgery, my blood levels kept dropping. They had to give me a second transfusion at that point, and the surgeon told them any blood tests that they take from me, use the pediatric files, because they were so worried about me losing any blood unnecessarily in the moment. Like, it's, I don't know, it just, the whole experience, like I said, could be something terrible, or you can see it as something wonderful. And that is a choice I've decided to make, is that, you know, just understanding if you have a second chance to do things over, are you going to do it the same way too? Like, that was a huge download that came in for me. It's just, you know, you spend so much time worrying about being perfect, having it all figured out. Nobody has it figured out. Nobody's perfect. You're not here to be perfect and have it all figured out. You're here to learn. You're here to grow. You're here to make choices, try new things, experience life, live in the moment. Nobody's got it all figured out. And anyone that tells you they do, open up their closet. You're going to find all those skeletons hiding in there. It's just such a blessing. Like, I'm going to look at this whole situation as a blessing. I learned how many people care about me. I learned that there's tons of amazing people in the world that try to do good even when they don't have to. Nobody has to sign up in healthcare. Nobody has to donate blood. Nobody has to volunteer time to do things with the elderly. No one has to do these things. People make a choice to do these things. So when you're seeing all the negativity in the world, you make a choice yourself to start to see all the people who've decided what they're going to do with their life is they're going to try to make the world a better place, one step at a time. That's magic, and that's beauty in and of itself.
Yeah. Wow. Amen to that. You know, and when you say that, like, I'm like, instead of seeing things as, you know, an obstacle, why not see it as an opportunity? And like, this conversation has also inspired me. Like, I think people really connect with each other by complaining. And I know I've been like a culprit of that. Like, oh, you want to fit in with the office water cooler talk, or you want to have a nice conversation with, you know, a family member. And it's always like you're meeting each other at like the unity of your woes, but then like speaking about them and letting them take over that whole conversation only amplifies them. So like, is there a way, this is just a question I'm asking myself, to like introduce an alternative perspective whenever somebody does come at you with their woes? Because I don't think it's like denying that there's negative in the world isn't really the answer. Like, you have to almost just accept it and acknowledge it for what it is, but then again, focus your lens on the good. So, you know, there has to be like a line. You could be like, well, have you thought about it this way? Or like, yeah, or like, you know, I hear you, I understand you, and I hope you start to feel better soon. But what's going on that's good in your life? What are you grateful for today? What's the last awesome thing that happened?
Yeah. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
What do you think your next step is? How do you think you're going to handle that? Like, where do you think you're going to go from here? What do you think you learned from that?
Yes.
Everything is a learning opportunity. Sometimes you learn the lesson of what you don't want. Sometimes you learn of what you don't want to be, who you don't want to be, what you don't want. What did you learn from that situation? Like, even those crappy situations have something to teach you. You just have to find the lesson and understand that there was value in it.
This reminds me, in the book, it's one of the Conversations with God book, probably the first one. And I read this and I understood it as a concept, but only in this exact moment am I like, oh, I get it. He says that life is basically this journey to find and express who you truly are. But to ever know who you truly are, you must also visit who you truly are not. So the things that you don't want, the things that make you feel crappy, the places or spaces you've been that just don't make you feel excited to be alive. And even that is a compass to send you back to where you truly do need to be. And again, when you read it, you're like, I get that. But then seeing the story, you're like, no, like, I get it now.
Some of the best people I've ever met in my life have been through the crappiest shit that you can imagine. And what they took from those really low lows was how they didn't want to make other people feel, who they wanted to be, that if they see someone struggling, they're going to have compassion and empathy. I think being through crap turns you into a better human being if you make that choice to be a better human being. Because I've had lows in my life, and those lows have showed me how easy it is for people to find themselves in poverty, find themselves suicidally depressed. Like, my lows have showed me where other people are. And what do you learn when you come out on the other side of it? You learn what other people need. You learn how to be that helping hand on the other side of it. You learn to be compassionate and empathetic towards what other people are going through. Because it's one thing to read about poverty. It's another thing to not know where your next meal is going to come from and feel it. It's one thing to read about the suicide rates and hear about depression. It's another thing to find yourself not being able to get out of bed in the morning and not knowing what your purpose is. Like, experiencing these things helps you to understand not just yourself and find your own strength, but it also helps you learn what you need to do to help other people too. Or at least be there for people and offer space for people when they're going through things.
That's so true. Like, I guess I would say, like, I've been pretty blessed for most of my life. And then at the beginning of, like, 2022 in particular, I had a bout of, like, actual real depression and a real anxiety, like the point where it gives you, like, panic attacks. And I'd never really known anxiety or depression to that level. Like, have I been in lows and, like, sad and cried and felt hopeless? 100%. But I can, like, move. I think, like, I'm fairly mentally strong. Emotionally, there's some cracks in there. But mentally, like, I can pretty much persevere through a lot of things. So when I met that dark moment at the beginning of that year, like, it feels hollow. It feels empty. You don't know. You're, like, reassessing every decision you've ever made. And, you know, it was really hard at the time. And you don't feel like you're going to get out of it. You're like, I don't understand how to get out of this. But, like, now that I have gone through that, like, two things have happened. One, I feel like people can manipulate me less, because if you tell me a sad story and what you need from me, I'll probably feel bad for you and, like, give it to you, but I don't understand what it's really like. So I feel like it just, people, you know, like, oh, this is really hard for me. Oh, okay, well, what can I give to you to make it easier? But now I'm like, okay, I've been depressed too. We can all get out of it. I believe that you can do it. I can do it. We can all do it. But also, oh my God, like, when it's real and it's not a manipulative situation, I'm like, you know, you want to sit with them and be like, hey, like, guess what? I did it. Like, we can all do this. Like, you got it. And not even like I can do it, but, like, I feel you. I know what you're saying. And it does make, like, so much more compassion.
I think that the best thing I learned from some of my lows that has made me feel better in my lowest moments is when people come in and say, you're not alone. I've been through this too, because you can be so hard on yourself when you're in those lows. Why can't I feel better? Why can't I do it? I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I can't do. You beat yourself up. But then you meet somebody on the other side of it and they say, I was there and it was hard. Here's some things that I did to help get me out. And it's not going to come as quick as you want, but every day you're going to make a little bit more progress if you work towards that progress. Like, we had a point years ago when my daughter was a baby when we were flirting with homelessness. Like, we really were down and out. And we had to move in with family in a basement. And trust me, you feel like an absolute sack of crap when you've got a baby and you're struggling to buy diapers. Like, you feel like shit. It's a real nasty place to be. Like, I remember just being like, I'm so sorry that you were born to me. Like, you deserve better, to my own kid. Like, that is a really crappy place to be. But then, you know, we talk to people and people will tell you, hey, guess what? Like, I think it was my husband's grandparents. So a couple generations up the ladder said, you know what? We were in the exact same situation years and years ago. We had to dig in the couch cushions to find money for diapers. Like, it was a low, and you can see them. And they raised like 6 kids. They've got, oh my God, I don't even know how many grandkids and great grandkids now, but they're doing well off. Like, you can see people on the other side of it. When you see people doing well, you think, oh man, they must have just had it all figured out. And they must have just, like, I must have fucked up along the way because these people got it all. You don't understand that a lot of people on the other side of having it figured out had to go through those pits and those lows and trudge through the mud just like you did.
And I think it's so important that people, like, when they feel comfortable, I'm not saying share your vulnerability when you're not at that space, but I think it's important that people do share where they're vulnerable, because, like, just thinking about when I was in my hard moments, like you said, like, when someone's like, hey, like, it's okay, you know, I've been in this situation too, and, like, yeah, they're on the other side of it, and you're just like, oh, like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that fucked this up, or whatever you say to yourself. And, like, the only thing in this life that is for certain is, like, change and death. And it's like, I don't know why we are so prone. We know that everything changes. We see change happening all the time, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But then we meet these harder moments or these things that we don't want in life. And we treat them like that's the one permanent thing. That, you know, your hardships with money is permanent. You know, your illness is permanent. These are permanent. But like, we've all lived long enough to know that nothing's permanent. Why do we assign permanent status to only the negative things?
Yeah.
And I just like think you give it so much power.
Well, even on the flip side of things, we assign permanent status on the expectations we place on ourselves too. Like, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get this job, and I'm going to stay at this job and work my way up the ladder, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and it's all going to go hunky-dory for the rest of my life. That's not a realistic game plan anymore. Like, the world is changing so much every day. Skills that are relevant are changing every day. What people want and need is changing every day. You should expect when you get out the gates that life's going to be full of change, up and down for the whole ride, because nothing just goes in a linear, perfect path in life. Like, it goes zigzag, left, right, back up the hill a bit, drop down a few paces, then back up again. Like, it goes all over the place. And the idea that you're just going to find this one thing and that's going to be your one thing forever isn't very realistic.
No.
Like, you're going to find a lot of things, and you should embrace that and be ready and excited for it.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that I've done in the last 3 years with myself, if you told me 15 years ago, hey, you're going to meet all these random people, show up in their house and do hypnosis sessions with them, find out these amazing past life stories, listen to their amazing current life stories, and at the end of it, you know, you're going to find this kind of magic with the universe, I would have been like, that sounds incredible, but very unlikely.
That's the truth.
There's all of this stuff that you experience that you would not expect, like right out of high school or right out of college, that's going to happen to you in your life. And some of it's going to be amazing, but if you've only got this tunnel vision of this is the direction your life is going to go, sometimes you might be pulling and resisting against the good stuff that's going to be coming in your life too, because it's not going the direction you think it's going to go. But it's some of that unexpected stuff that happens, or the way you come out of these pits as a different person, is what makes life worth living. It's going to be so much better on the other side of it. You just can't see it if you're focused on that one perfect tunnel vision of where you think you're supposed to be going.
Mm-hmm. And like, when you say that, it's like my question for, you know, all, like everyone listening, it's like, you're told, or those narratives that you're fed, that like that's what you do things in this linear order. You graduate, you go to school, you find your dream job, you get married, you buy a house, you have a family, you work your work, you retire. But like, if you actually sat with yourself, does that linear path, is that what you want to review back? Like, some people may be like, yeah, I've lived enough chaotic lives, I want to have this nice linear thing. But like, honestly, I'm really learning that the one true sin in humanity, the one true culprit of pain and turmoil, is like boredom. Feeling like you came here to be alive, but you can't feel anything. You're just maneuvering through life. And I think that's why depression is so painful. You can't feel anything. You can't find joy. And that's when people are dancing with killing themselves, because that is the true deficit. That is the true robbery of life. Don't you want to look back at your life and be like, wow, that was a roller coaster, and that's what made it fun?
Yeah. Well, and even that whole idea of like the suicide, just, are you wanting to kill yourself because life isn't working out, or you're bored, or is it because everything you think that you want or need has been programmed into you, and that's not really who you are?
Exactly.
I think when you hit those really low lows, it's literally your spirit trying to tell you something needs to change and something here isn't working. That's what I honestly believe depression is that is your soul telling you something needs to change. Something in here is not in alignment. And anyone out there who's feeling like they might want to kill themselves, or they're in that dark place, if you're going to lose it all anyhow, you might as well bet on black and just make some changes. Make some changes. If it's toxic people in your life, it's better to be on your own without toxic people. If it's your job, maybe you don't completely change what you're doing, but maybe you just need a new office. Maybe you can do the same thing in a different location that's going to work better for you. Like, I believe honestly when you hit those lows, it's just because your soul is literally telling you something here is not working and we need to make a change. We need to make life worth living again. We need to find something in this existence that brings us that joy.
Mm-hmm. And literally, like you said, just taking a chance on something maybe you've never tried before is the answer.
Yeah. Well, and we can be so scared of change. It's like if you're at that point where you feel like you're ready to throw in the towel, take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when I've been in my darkest places, sometimes it's literally taken just a shake up of moving things around. Like, I know I was super depressed when we were living on the East Coast because that's where we were hitting that one big rock bottom financially and everything. It took me moving across the country, not once, but twice.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I had to move to BC and realize, hey, universe didn't want me there either. And it took getting myself, like I said, staying in someone's basement. And you know what? We were alive, we were fed, we were good for a little bit. And it took making new choices. What are we going to do for a career now? What are we going to do? And at that moment, do you think that I believed that we would have our own house, that we would have the kind of security and abundance that we had now? I didn't. To me, I was celebrating getting into low-income housing. I'm out of a basement. I'm in my own place.
Yeah.
Like, and that's another thing. Celebrate every win, every single win you have, because that's going to bring in more wins for you. You should feel proud if you're able to get yourself out of a basement into low-income housing. It doesn't matter if it's low-income housing. It's a new house for you and it's a step up. Every positive step you make in the right direction, celebrate that. You should be proud because it's not always easy. And sometimes it takes baby steps to get where you need to go. But every baby step forward is a step away from where you've been, right? And celebrate every win. You get your first client, celebrate it. You get your 150th client, celebrate it. Celebrate every win because you earned it. You should feel good about those wins. You'll beat yourself up for every freaking mistake you make, but you won't celebrate your wins? Like, that's crazy. Like, we're just doing it backwards.
Oh my God. When you say it like that, is that ever an aha moment? Like, and what you, like, it's such an old saying, but it's like what you focus on, you attract more of. So if you're going to beat yourself up, then you attract more of that. If you're going to celebrate yourself, you attract more celebration. And like, again, I'm such a culprit for that. Like, man, I gotta turn it around over here.
And you do get programmed to be that way though. Like, you get your tests and grades back in school, and oh, you could have done better on this, you should have done better. Oh, you only got 43 out of 50, you got 7 wrong. Oh, how about I celebrate I got 43 freaking right?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Start to change the narrative.
Oh, that's so true. And I think for me, like, I'm afraid to ever be perceived as, like, egotistical for celebrating things. But it's like, no one said you had to blast your celebration on social media. Like, just freaking celebrate within yourself. Like,
hey, you know what? I earned this second glass of wine today.
Exactly.
I'm gonna upsize my Frappuccino. I earned it today. Like,
exactly.
Just celebrate in your own way. Even just say, hey, you know what? Awesome. I've given my life a little bit of value and a little bit of purpose today. Or I've done something beautiful. Or, like, my certificates, like all the certificates I've gotten the last couple of years in different courses, like Reiki, BQH, QHHT, I've got them all in a book. And my husband was sitting there one day and I was like, you know what? According to like mainstream world, these pieces of paper don't mean shit. But I'm really proud of these because this shows things that I loved, that I was interested in, that I'm passionate about, that means something to me. And I followed through the process to learn about them and upgrade my skills on being a better human being. So I'm keeping them in this nice little binder, and they mean more to me than any of the mainstream schooling that I've done because they're important to me. So it doesn't matter what the world thinks is a win either. If it feels like a win to you, celebrate that shit. Because it's your life and your win.
And again, when you're on your last day on this planet, are you going to give a flying fuck about what anyone else told you were supposed to be or what was valuable and not valuable? Only you'll know.
Exactly. And start to do the things you love. Stop looking at the programming where everything needs to be monetized. Like, that was another download that came into me. Do it because you love it. Don't do it because it's a career. How many times have you come up to somebody in your life when you were a kid or a teenager and I want to do this in my life, and you'll never make any money doing that. Oh, artists are poor and starving. Like any of those things that brought you joy and passion that people took a crap on. You find those things and you start doing them now, and you do them for you, and you put your love and dedication into them, and you're going to find more and more people are going to find that value in them. You're not going to start an Etsy shop overnight, but if it brings you joy to do it, you bring that back into your life and you do it. You don't put it on the back burner just because you can't corporate monetize it.
Oh,
like,
amen.
If you love music, do music. Even if you're never going to play at Carnegie Hall, you do your music. You crochet the hell out of it. You paint what you want to paint, even if you're the only one who loves that painting. Like, do it for you. Start doing things for you and stop worrying about the external gaze of everyone else. Do it because you love it, not because you're going to make a career out of it. And you never know. You might find eventually it leads to a career, and maybe it's just something that brings more joy and value into your existence right now.
Oh my God. I love that so much. This is first of all the podcast I've cried the most in. I've been over here shedding tears the whole time. So praise Michelle for not also crying, looking at me just dripping. I'm like, and then like that, what you just said right there, like, oh, it reminds me of a song, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but I will tag the song because it's really great. That they're saying like they're a band, obviously musicians. And the line in the song is like, the more we did it for the money, the less we got paid. Like the more hang-ups, the more deficits, the less we got booked. And then they said like, you know, once we realized the meaning of life, which is like what happens if it's just like sharing the love that you found in your music. Yeah. In your talents and your gifts.
Well, that's just it. Share your light, because you're here to share and shine your light and your message. And if you start changing the message to be what you think everyone else wants to hear, it stops being your message and your light. Like every single one of us has something of value to bring to this world. Like I said, you might not see it in the moment, but it's there, and you are affecting things so much bigger than yourself, and you don't even know it. You don't even know. You could have had a conversation with somebody in the grocery store lineup, and maybe that's what they needed that day, not to get into that pit where they felt like taking themselves out of the world. You have no idea how far your impact is hitting people. Be you. Be authentic. Stop censoring who you are because you're scared of what people are going to perceive. You're never going to make everybody happy. It doesn't matter what the hell you do. It's always going to be wrong in somebody's eyes. So if people are going to like you or dislike you regardless, then do it for you.
Oh my God, yes.
Like I said, when you don't know it's going to be your last little bit there, it really, my higher self gave me so much shit when I was recovering after the second surgery. They're like, you spent the last 40 years of your life tiptoeing around everything because you were so worried about what other people would think. If you were gone today, if you didn't wake up after the second surgery, would any of that shit have mattered? It wouldn't have. Do it for you. Like, absolutely do it for you. And like I said, it doesn't matter if it's something that makes you rich or famous. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to do it for you. Feel the passion, feel the love, live in the moment, and bring value to your own existence. And I honestly feel like everything you draw into you will snowball. You snowball the good stuff. Start focusing on snowballing that energy. Start with doing a painting that makes you happy. Maybe you gift one to a friend. Like, start doing those things that bring value to your life. And once you start to see the value, I guarantee you everyone else is going to see the value around it too. And even if it's not the corporate world idea of value, it's still bringing value. Like, you can hear a song, and that song can just pull up a lifetime of emotions in you. And I mean, half the songs that do that for me are from indie artists that probably aren't getting paid a lot. But that music can just touch your soul because they're sharing their authentic light in the world. Like, there's so much more value than just a paycheck.
Or how many likes or follows you have. Like,
exactly.
The impact that you ripple out is not going to be mirrored all the time in your bank account or the followers you have on Instagram. Like, it's so much more than that.
Yeah, and it could just be the matter of you've inspired somebody else to be their best version of themselves, and you'll never even know it. That person will move on, live a whole lifetime, and it'll be a memory of something you said or done or something they've seen that, you know, it's touched them in a way that it stays with them forever. And I just think there's jokes that I tell from things I've seen years and years ago. Like, I had a little kid when I was working retail come up to my till with a toy dinosaur, and he was so excited he was going to buy it with his own money. And like, this is probably 15 years ago, and I still remember this kid coming up to my till with these two dinosaurs, and he can barely talk, and he's just, I got a baby dino and a mama dino. And I still laugh about that. That kid has no idea. 15 years later, this kid is a teenager now, and I still laugh about that memory. Like, you have no idea how one interaction is going to stick with somebody forever. Like, it's just crazy.
God, that's so true. Or even think about, the people that have influenced me that probably just have no idea that it was one thing they said on one day that went into my brain and has never left. Like,
yeah, and that's helping to shape you as a person too. Like, you have no idea how you're being shaped by people around you or how you're shaping the people around you. Like, one memory, one interaction, and it sticks with you forever. Like, that affected how sometimes I say dinosaur now, 15 years later.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And you don't know, like, and it makes me laugh every time. That kid didn't know that he was going to give me 15 years worth of laughter when he came to pay for his dinosaurs. Like,
Mom dino and a big dino. Oh my God.
So, I mean, you never know how that impact is going to be out there. And I really, if anyone takes anything out of this, I want you to know that everything you do with authenticity and love is making a difference, even if you don't see it. Like, every time you laugh and smile and bring that light into the world, it is making a difference, even if you don't see that difference in the moment. Like, you really, like, I feel like it's just a spider web, and you just flick one little strand and the whole web starts to shake. And that's what life is. You share that light, you flick that strand, and it just permeates out.
Wow. And then doesn't that make you think, like, oh, that's the meaning of life? Like, I came here not remembering or knowing what the point of any of this is, to see if I could still just be in my light and follow what brings me joy. And then when you do get to do that grand review at the end, being like, wow, look at what I did create. Look at who I did affect, you know, like, what a glorious day that will be.
Well, exactly. Like, that's amazing to me. It's like, man, if you can get to that life review and you can see, like, oh, it turns out that one day that I, like, told someone they had a nice hat, like, they had the worst day of their life, and it boosted their mood, like, gave them a whole different spin on that day. And maybe because they were in a better mood, they didn't go behind the wheel and get in an accident because they were upset. Like, you have no idea the kind of weird domino effect the smallest thing you're going to do out there is going to create, like the butterfly effect. And I think the more of us that can get ourselves in that mindset of seeing the beauty and seeing the joy, it's just going to be contagious. Like the 100 monkey effect. There was those guys that were studying these monkeys in Japan, and they noticed that a couple of monkeys were learning how to, like, wash their potatoes in the water beforehand. And they spread it on to the rest of the troop, who would watch them and emulate them and learn from them. What they found out was an island way far away, like across the ocean. After a certain number of these monkeys on this island learned it, the ones on this other island were starting to do it. They'd never emulated or seen these monkeys on this one island. It was just like an energetic effect. Like, look into the 100 monkeys effect. It's incredible. Wow. So, you know what? You get enough people starting to see the good in life, and that shit is just going to ripple out across the planet. And the more people that start to see and bring in and pull in that joy and that beauty and that wonder, you're going to reprogram reality. Like, I honestly feel like that is where your power is. Everyone's, oh, I'm so small, I'm not going to make a difference. You don't have to make a huge difference. You just have to drop that pebble in the pond, and that ripple effect's going to do the work for you. Just stay in your truth, stay in your authenticity, stay in your light, and keep yourself on the up and up. And people who see you are going to say, hey, why is everything so good for you? How are you doing that? Like, hey, you can do it too. And it's just as easy as loving yourself, starting to see the beauty around you, and doing what it is that makes you happy. Yeah. Without looking at it through the programmed lens of it has to bring you money, or it has to bring you fame, or it has to bring you this.
Oh my goodness. And like with those monkeys, it's obvious that like one had to be, you know, confident enough in themselves and not concerned about what other people think to like wash those potatoes first. Like somebody has to go first.
Yeah.
And it might as well be you.
Well,
right?
and it might as well be. And if the most thing you can do is just make the people that spend time in your presence happy, frick, you've lived a good life. And I don't mean people pleasing, but if just your energy is contagious enough for them to start to feel self-love and start to feel that self-confidence around themselves, like that's amazing. There's so much magic. Like that's the only message I keep getting is like you get so stuck in the illusion that you don't see the magic.
Wow, is that ever true? Like that is profound. And it's just profound. Thank you so much for sharing all this. Like this has been incredible. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say, or you feel like you hit all the things?
I think I hit all the things, but yeah, I just want to give out one more big thank you to all the people in my life that stepped up and helped me out when I needed it. I had so much support from friends, family, and people working in the community doing what they thought was just their everyday job. Like, thank you to everybody that has helped to make this last month a lot easier and stress-free for me from start to finish. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing.